Tonight, police believe human remains may have been discovered at the site of a St. John's golf course. That story and...
Sad that this has come to Carbonear. I can't say I was surprised. I was certainly disappointed that it had happened.
Another backhoe bank robbery, this time in Carbonear. Yvonne Jones and Goody Hutchings are out. This province has 6 Liberal seats in Parliament. Now 5 of those MPs say they will not be running again.
The consumer advocate will lead an independent oversight panel into the Churchill Falls MOU. This as MHAs are gearing up to vote on the deal tonight.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin tonight in the east end of St. John's. Police have found possible human remains at the site of a country club near Stavanger Drive. According to the RNC, someone made the discovery around 10 o'clock this morning at Ballyhaley. That's where the former Clovelly golf course used to be, adjacent to the town of Logie Bay Middle Cove Outer Cove. CBC is told the chief medical examiner is on the scene as well as search and rescue. It's a story we'll continue to follow. And another brazen backhoe robbery to tell you about. Last night, a Scotiabank branch in Carbonear suffered significant damage following yet another robbery using construction equipment. Jenna Head has that story.
In the light of day, the devastation from the dark of night is clear. The ATM at the Scotiabank drive-thru in Carbonear is gone. What's left is the wreckage. The building was attacked by 2 backhoes. Whoever was at the controls dug at the bank, grabbing the ATM. A shock, but not a surprise for the mayor.
It's sad that this has come to Carbonear. I mean, we see it happening in the city of St. John's, and as time went by, it came closer and closer, you know, and so here it is today that they've actually come into town of Carbonear, destroyed the building, and created, a lot of unrest within our town.
There's been a recent string of tractor attacks along the Avalon. Goobies, Holyrood, St. John's, and Paradise. That's enough for one business owner, Frank Butt, to make a move to protect his business. This Esso gas station in downtown Carbonear.
Past 2 years has been closer. The ATMs were getting hit more and more. And this morning when I read it online there that it had happened here, I made a decision that it will be our ATM at our store will be removed. It has been removed already, so it'll reduces the temptation of creating damage to the building for the sake of whatever's in the contents of the ATM.
He's taking precautions, but the mayor says Carbonear is safe.
So this here is an isolated incident. The town of Carbonear certainly is still a safe place to be and a safe place to live and conduct commerce. But, I mean, we don't need this in our town, and no other town needs it as well.
Harbour Grace RCMP say multiple people were involved in the crime and an investigation is underway. Jenna Head, CBC News, Carbonear.
Well, turning now to a story we've been following for nearly a year, how unclaimed human remains are being handled by the province. The NDP says changes to legislation aren't enough and that new amendments may make things easier for the health authority, but they don't help families. Here Now's Mark Quinn brings us the latest.
NDP leader Jim Dinn has helped one woman retrieve and bury the unclaimed remains of a loved one.
She still remembers the frustration in trying to get this resolved. So I hope no family ever has to go through that again.
But he says it's not clear if the problems she faced have been solved. According to amendments of the Health Authority Act and regulations that came into effect on January 1st, Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services has 14 days to find someone eligible to claim remains, such as a spouse, a parent, or a child. After 2 weeks, a notice will be posted online for 5 days. After that, the health authority can dispose of unclaimed remains either by cremation, burial, or another undisclosed means. For those without the financial means to bury their loved ones, those who can't afford a funeral, Dinn says these changes don't help. He also wants reassurances that the province has enough staff and resources to support those people.
Have they made the progress they have claimed they claim they're going to make? And I think families deserve to know that. We as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians need to know that, that our fellow citizens aren't just simply being kept in the cooler section.
CBC has requested interviews with the health minister and health authority officials. No one has been made available yet. Din wants answers, like how many unclaimed bodies are being held in facilities like this one at the Health Sciences Centre in St. John's. When CBC first reported on this last March, there were 28 bodies in freezers like this. Last month, the health minister said there were about 3 dozen.
But if you're not letting people know what the numbers are, we don't know if indeed the legislation or the mechanism that government has in place right now are actually working or sufficient. That's the troubling part.
And Din has other questions, such as how can individuals find the website that lists unclaimed remains, and how will those remains be identified to the public? He's calling on the health minister and health authority officials to answer those questions. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, 2 more Liberal MPs from this province won't be running again in the next election. CBC News has learned longtime Labrador MP Yvonne Jones won't seek re-election. The powerhouse from Mary's Harbour has held seats at the municipal, provincial and federal level for decades, first as mayor of her community in the early 90s, before being elected MHA in 1996, a seat she won again in 99, 2003, 2007 and 2011. Jones won the federal Labrador seat 2 years later and has battled breast cancer twice. She's set to hold a press conference tomorrow. And with Justin Trudeau stepping down, a federal election must happen before October, and Goody Hutchings, MP for the Long Range Mountains, is also out. Hutchings, who was first elected in 2015 as the Minister of Rural Economic Development and responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. Jones and Hutchings join fellow Liberals Ken McDonald, Seamus O'Regan, and Terence Rogers, who have all said they won't run again. Well, you could call it a mass exodus. That's 5 out of 6 Liberal MPs from this province not running again in the next election. When asked about that today, the Premier said politics is a challenging job.
The decisions weigh heavy, the compromise of family life is heavy. And to go back and forth to Ottawa is even an extra step. I know my colleague, for example, has to go back and forth to Port Basque. I have to go back and forth to Deer Lake quite a bit. That's all time away from your family. It's all time away from your friends. And the people that you just mentioned gave a tremendous service to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and to the people of Canada, some almost 10 years. And anytime anyone does that, regardless of political stripe, they're to be commended.
And staying with politics, the consumer advocate will chair an independent expert panel overseeing the new Churchill Falls agreement. The NDP and independent MHAs say this move means they will support the deal. Heather Gillis is live from the Confederation Building tonight with more. She's been following the debate at the House all week long. So Heather, where do the PCs stand now and what's expected to happen tonight?
Well, Carolyn, sometime between now and 9 o'clock tonight, MHAs are going to vote on the MOU. And if it does pass, that will give Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro the authority to go forward and negotiate the definitive agreements with Hydro-Quebec, those final contracts. And today, the government got some more support on its side from the independent MHAs and the NDP by announcing independent oversight. But the PCs still aren't on board.
Today, cooperation between the Liberals, NDP and independent MHAs on the historic new deal for power on the Churchill River. This after it was decided the consumer advocate will provide independent oversight with an expert panel and release information quarterly.
It's going to review the MOU and the progress towards definitive agreements. It will provide advice to Cabinet and provide summaries to the public and to the House of Assembly in a manner that respects commercial sensitivities and does not jeopardize the province's negotiations.
On average, $1 billion a year which is tremendous.
After the Premier announced the new deal with Quebec last month, consumer advocate Dennis Brown told CBC News he didn't see a catch and thought the negotiating team did a good job. Today, Andrew Furey says he doesn't think those statements color the advocate's independence.
He's also, of course, been a strong opponent of Muskrat Falls. He's taken very public positions on other things. I don't think that jeopardizes or compromises his independence in his current position.
But Tory leader Tony Wakeham disagrees.
The appointment of a well-known Liberal by the Premier, someone who's already formed an opinion on the MOU, and this particular individual is tasked with bringing on 2 more individuals, I don't think that, to me, fits the definition of independence.
Wakeham would rather pause until the House reopens in March, have the PUB oversee the agreement before a vote. The Premier says that won't happen. Meanwhile, the NDP says additional oversight was needed for that party's support.
We have something in place that has independent of government.
According to Furey, it was the independent MHAs who brought the idea of the consumer advocate to him. Paul Lane is one of the only sitting MHAs that voted in favor of Muskrat Falls, leaving him cautious.
It provides the comfort that I needed to be able to support this.
Let's put down our stripes and let's try to work something out for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Now, the Premier says holding off on this deal like the PCs want could jeopardize the deal, while the NDP hope for updates from the expert panel by June. Now, the word election has been on the lips of the opposition here in the House over the past 4 days. The PCs are accusing the Liberals of trying to ram this deal through the House so that they can call an election. We asked the Premier about a possible election today, and he only said that one will be held sometime in 2025. Reporting live for Here and Now, I'm Heather Gillis outside the House of Assembly in St. John's.
Well, as high school students get closer to graduation, stress can sink in over what comes next. Holy Spirit in Conception Bay South is trying to quell some of that anxiety with an annual fair where common career paths are showcased alongside some more or less traditional options.
This is the 6th annual career fair here at Holy Spirit High School. The career development teachers ask their students for information, and the students give them a list of people they'd like to meet with, occupational practitioners as opposed to recruiters. And we start from there, and we start inviting people to join us.
We're going to start tattooing some melons, letting the kids practice a little bit, getting their hands dirty, so to speak.
That's when we're really going to see the people, I think.
Yeah, we're gonna close this whole section right off here.
I think it's really cool, like, to see all of the different jobs. Like, there were some that I didn't even think of, but when I talked to them, and I was like, oh, I could really consider this. Like, this would be really interesting to be in.
You know, it's pretty awesome because it gets you to see more of the career from people who actually do it that you can't really see online, or that even in class they can't really teach you.
Are you getting any kind of questions in?
Yeah, lots of questions. Everyone's really open to talking about what their jobs are like, what their lives are like, and it's awesome. You get to learn a lot.
One girl here who is a funeral director, I asked her if she enjoyed her job and why she chose it, and she gave me a lot of interesting answers, and it made me really consider maybe having that as a career.
Would you have thought of that before today?
Not even once.
I didn't expect to have as much interest, but like everyone's asking great questions and they seem really interested in it. You know, they're wondering about school, they're wondering what we do, they're asking questions about the embalming process. It's just, yeah, they got a lot of good questions.
Our career teachers basically have what we call a passport, and they have some focus questions there, and they go to see 5 careers that they choose. So seeing the kids communicate with people, asking questions about what they need to do in school, kids ask how much money they make, etc. So it's great to see them having that opportunity to discuss what possible career choices after high school.
Well, we've got our next area of low pressure moving in that is leading to a wind warning for parts of the province, particularly northern peninsula, southeastern portions of Labrador. We're looking at those winds ramping up as we head through the overnight with gusts near 100. I'll get into all the details coming up a little later.
Well, you may have noticed that it hasn't been looking or feeling particularly wintry so far this season. Temperatures have been above average, and if it keeps up, it could cause some problems for your garden in the spring. Tim Walsh is with the Botanical Garden. He joins me now. So, Tim, can you talk about why a milder winter could pose a risk to your plants?
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? We're seeing this really mild conditions, and the soil temperatures are still mild and warm. And so what could happen potentially is that we could start to see those plants waking up a little bit sooner than they would normally. Normally this time of year we'd have colder temperatures, soil temperatures cold, the plants are sitting dormant. They'll get a layer of snow eventually, which we know they'll get. And then they'll stay there until that snow melts away in the spring and things start up automatically like they always do. But with winters like this, where we're seeing this, not even any frost in the ground, we're looking around at perennial gardens, starting to see little bits of growth. It's a little bit worrisome to think that we may have some of those plants wake up a little bit sooner than they would normally.
And what happens if that does happen? Why is that bad for the plants?
Well, if it's not uncommon for them to start a little bit. And I've got an example here actually. I've got this little bulb that I had out in the nursery here at the Botanical Garden. And these are bulbs that we are growing for spring displays in our window boxes. This is a muscari or grape hyacinth. And look at it now. It's already growing this foliage already. Right. And so I want this to stop. I want this, no, don't do this right now. Eventually, if this keeps going, it's going to start to put a flower up there. And then once that flower gets up and exposed to the cold weather, then, which we will eventually have, that would drastically impact on that flower's ability to do its thing in the spring. Now, these plants and a lot of our plants that we grow and a lot of the plants that we select for display here at the Botanical Garden and our gardens in Newfoundland are resilient plants. They're quite used to freeze-thaw. We are quite used to freeze-thaw. Yes. It's not an uncommon thing. But the problem is that there's no frost in the ground, and so the plants are not staying that strong dormancy that they get into and they stay there. When we talk freeze-thaw, we generally talk about snowfalls, and then the snow melts away, and the surface is exposed, and then it snows again. That's a normal freeze-thaw. Mm-hmm. But to have not even a frost yet, and a continued thaw throughout the whole winter, if that's going to happen, then we're in for some drastic changes in our landscape, and they're kind of changes that we really can't understand at this point.
Right, and so could people see like not as many plants come up in their garden in the spring if that were to happen? Like, could plants be damaged by the weather?
They could be, because a lot of them depend on that dormancy, and they depend on the frost, on the snow cover. So the concern is that if the plants stay in this condition that they are now, and then we get some really hard frosts, let's say next month in February, which is traditionally a cold winter time, that frost can go deep into the ground, and it could necessarily possibly affect those plants where they're normally covered with a nice blanket of snow. And the snow actually, contrary to what we think, the snow is actually a great insulator. Mm-hmm. We think of snow as cold, but if you think of a nice layer of snow on top of the soil, that actually stops the frost from getting deep down into the soil and affecting those plants.
And of course, climate change is a concern. If we start to see sustained milder winters, if that becomes a trend, what other issues could arise?
Well, we don't know for sure, really, do we? But one of the things that we know that can be a problem is that our gardens and our landscape and our environment rely on winter to keep lots of things in checks, like pests and diseases. So if you think of an insect that we had a lot of last year, well, they're laying lots of eggs. They're probably overwintering themselves as adults in the leaf debris, under the barks of trees. And we actually rely on a cold winter to kill off quite the vast majority of those insects, so that they start off next year with a very small population, and then it takes them a long time to build up that population so that they don't become a big problem for us in our gardens and also in our agriculture as well. When we have mild winters and those insects are not killed off, then they're starting off the new year with a large population, with a big army ready to get out there and wreak havoc. So it could potentially be quite an issue right there, no doubt about that.
Well, Tim Walsh, I don't often hope for colder temperatures, but with everything you're saying, I do kind of hope that the temperatures do drop. Thank you so much for this.
It's been a real pleasure, Carolyn. Thank you.
So it may seem that we're getting milder than usual weather this winter, but what do the actual numbers say, and how long could this milder weather last? Ashley will be by to break that down for us after the break. Okay, so before the break, Ashley, we were talking about how it seems like it's a little bit milder out there this winter. But what do the numbers actually say about the temperatures?
Yeah, so starting in December, Environment Canada does this roundup every month. So let's take a look at the numbers. It has been mild right across the board. Here's those numbers for you. So up across Labrador, temperatures in December were anywhere from about 3 to as much as 5 degrees warmer than what you would typically see. That is no surprise. The sea ice is way below normal as well. And if we take a look at the numbers across the island, anywhere from 1 to about 3 degrees warmer than what it typically would be in in December rather. And January started off very much the same way, and we're still sitting there as well. Environment Canada also does this chart where they show you what the potential to see above seasonable temperatures would be over the 3-month period. So this would be January, February, and March. And as you can see over the province, anywhere from 50 to as much as 80% chance that we will see above normal temperatures. And that doesn't mean that it will be always above normal, but the mean temperature in that time frame will likely be above what we would typically see for this time of year. And like I said, we are definitely seeing that now as we head into, January 8th? January 8th. 9th. Carolyn just told me it was the 9th. So definitely warm. Mary's Harbour around 2 degrees today. And then those temperatures across the island anywhere from 0 to even a little bit below there in St. John's right now is where we're sitting. So we can see our next area of low pressure spinning offshore right now, and it is moving in and also bringing some rain and snow right along with it. Also some gusty winds. So right now, winds gusting around 69 kilometers per hour right now in St. Anthony, 72 in Makovic. And as we head through tonight, there is a wind warning in place. And essentially, winds will be gusting upwards of about 80 to as much as 100 kilometers per hour after midnight and then through towards the early morning hours tomorrow before those winds will eventually ease. That is also going to be combined with some wintry weather, again, towards the coast where those temperatures have been relatively mild. This is falling as either wet snow or a rain-snow mix. And we're seeing that for the northern peninsula as well, even parts of the west coast. Expect that as we head through tonight. Now, snow will likely continue through areas like central, even eastern Newfoundland will likely see some snow tonight as that area of low pressure continues to sink south. And eventually, like I said, those winds will ease as well. Overnight temperatures tonight will hover somewhere around the 0 degree mark, a little bit above to the south. And then Labrador hovering around 0 degrees for Cartwright. And further west, your temperatures will be a little cooler into the minus single digits. As far as the snowfall amounts go, generally between 5 to 10 centimeters is likely by the time we get into Saturday morning as this system continues to sink south. There is a potential to see some higher amounts, particularly in the inland areas and the upper areas as well, up across Labrador. But overall, 10 to maybe 15 centimeters is possible for areas like Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor, maybe if you don't see that change over to rain. But overall, this will be a very wet snow today, even having a little bit of a hard time accumulating. Now, if we take a look at the timeline into tomorrow, there's a good chance eastern Newfoundland will see some rain in the mix there as well. So even though snowfall amounts look to be about 5 to 10 centimeters, it'll likely have a hard time accumulating with the exception of maybe some grassy surfaces and up in the higher elevations. But things could be slick tomorrow, so just keep that in mind if you do have any travel plans across the island and even up across Labrador. Again, continuing to hang on to that wintry weather as we get into early Saturday morning, eventually tapering off as we the area of low pressure loses its grip. Overall, 1 to about 3 degrees tomorrow across the island. We will notice that those winds will shift from southerlies to northeasterlies for eastern areas of the island. And then Labrador, you're looking at a pretty lovely day in Lab West, -7 with some sunshine in the mix there as well. But again, continuing to hang on to that wintry weather towards the coast. I'll get into the long range forecast when I come back a little later.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Adey, host of Land and Sea. Coming up this Sunday, we have a show from 2010 all about Mistaken Point.
So you look down and you can see them right there at your feet. They lived on the deep ocean seafloor. So that means they were too far down for light to reach. So they couldn't have been plants because they wouldn't have been able to photosynthesize. So these are believed to be the first animals ever discovered.
Valerie Sullivan is from nearby Calvert. She's been a guide here for 3 years.
Mistaken Point is the only place where you can come and see the whole community of these organisms, and they're preserved so well. Like there's nowhere else on Earth where you can see the whole community and the whole ecosystem. And just when you're standing here, they're just everywhere. They're beneath your feet. There's nowhere you can stand without looking at them. The lighting is really good today too, so they kind of jump out at you.
The fossils aren't that easy to see when it's overcast. In fact, they were discovered by accident in 1967 by a geology student from Memorial University.
He just came here and sat down to eat his lunch because he thought it was a nice flat surface to sit and eat his lunch. And when he looked below, he saw all these fossils.
Once your eyes adjust, they're impossible to miss. There are more of these kinds of fossils and more diversity than anywhere else on Earth.
So that's a show from former host Pauline Thornhill called Mistaken Mystique, and you can see that this Sunday at 11:30, 11 o'clock in most of Labrador. If you miss it on Sunday, you can watch it on Monday after Here and Now. And if you'd like to watch online, look for it on CBC Gem or on CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube channel. We'll see you Sunday.
You're driving through neighborhoods and it's like, you know, there's a house and there's 4 houses missing. There's another house and there's 3 houses missing. And it's just, I mean, it feels and looks sort of like a war zone. Like it's just streets are flattened.
Warm temperatures, high winds, and little rain in California where deadly wildfires are raging on. Gander film director Brad Payton is there, and he describes the sheer destruction that's coming up. A filmmaker from this province says the California wildfires are on his doorstep. So close, his doormat caught fire. Officials say the two largest fires burning outside Los Angeles are 0% contained.
The scale of the impact today is larger than anything that I have seen in my career.
Thousands of homes have been destroyed and more than 11,000 hectares of land burned. The number of deaths stood at 5 this morning, but that number is expected to rise. Crews did beat back a new fire overnight at the hills above Hollywood Boulevard, but after months without rain, the land is parched. We're about to hear from someone from this province who typically directs big budget films about natural disasters and high stakes scenarios. His neighborhood was evacuated earlier this week. Well, joining us now from Hollywood is filmmaker Brad Payton, who's originally from Gander. Brad, thanks so much for speaking with us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a sense of where you are right now in relation to the fires?
Yeah, I'm in Hollywood at an Airbnb. I live in Altadena. Everyone was evacuated 2 days ago.
Okay, and do you know what the status of your home is right now?
Not right now. I had a vehicle parked at my place in Altadena, and so we drove out to get it and check on the house. And when we arrived there, the house next to us had fire trucks in front of it, and the back side of their house had caught fire, and the whole garage was on fire. So I took a couple photos and posted to Instagram of the firefighters in the backyard. That was literally from my backyard, and all my doormats were on fire at my house, so I had to go and get a hose and put out all the doormats. But we got actually really, really lucky. The house directly behind me, so like my backyard touches its backyard, that was completely gone. It was just a pile of rubble and just smoking rubble. And then there's a street next to my street, and I've walked it a million times because it's the way to go into the canyon, which is like a really easy hiking area, and I hike all the time. And that entire street, I'm gonna get maybe 25 houses. They were all gone. There was like 2 houses left. So that's when it struck us of just like how bad it was. And then after, we had to pull all the vegetation off our house, and I took hoses. There's no power, so none of the fire hydrants or sprinklers, none of the sprinklers work. So you can't get your property wet. It just, all the power's off because there's also power lines down everywhere. So when you're driving around the streets, there's just electrical lines like just hanging in the street or like laying out on the street, or some of them have taken trees down. And so I had to spray everything down. And after I was done all that, myself and my fiance decided to drive through the neighborhood. And that's when it really hit us, because as you drove through the neighborhood, which is basically the core of Altadena, up by the mountains. So it's like, I think it's Altadena Drive. I would guess 50% of the houses were gone. And that was the first morning of the fires. So like you're driving through neighborhoods and it's like, there's a house and there's 4 houses missing. And there's another house and there's 3 houses missing. And it's just, it feels and looks sort of like a war zone. Like it's just streets are flattened. Then at some point it just doesn't feel safe because the fire department is telling everyone to get out. So we just had to leave the house. We took, the belongings that we thought were really valuable, which I have to say is, reflecting on it is, it makes you realize like what's really important, right? It's just the people you care about. There's a couple things you really care about, but beyond that, there's no control over it. And so you just have to kind of count your blessings that everyone's safe and your animals are safe. And we got lucky. Like I said, our house is still there, and there's people going out to check on it now for me. So yeah, it's pretty shocking, really.
Yeah, it sounds terrifying, and of course we're seeing the images here of just neighborhoods being wiped out. Just incredible footage. How are you doing right now? I can't imagine what it's like to be in the middle of all of this. How are you feeling?
I have been lucky enough very recently in my life to meet really good people, and I have a perspective on this that I'm sure is very difficult for people to have, but I learned a long time ago to try not to stress about the things you can't control. And I work and live in an industry where it's all about controlling factors. And, the best thing that I've taken from this is a reminder of like what's really important. You hope that society will support the people that are going through, things that are really rough, like if they lose their house or they lose a loved one or they lose their pets. You hope that, my thoughts are more with, I hope that insurance companies and the government and those factors don't make this ugly, and they do the right thing and help the people that deserve to be helped.
Well, Brad, Peyton, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. I'm glad to hear that you and your fiance are safe, and I'm sure everyone's hoping that these fires get under control soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome. Good to speak.
Now, Peyton isn't the only Newfoundlander in Los Angeles. Peter Green is originally from St. John's, but has lived in LA for the last 35 years, working as a musician and dean of arts at Glendale College. Here he is describing what he's been seeing from his home in the north.
I got up yesterday morning and all you could see was red. You could actually see the fire, all of the smoke, you could see the black, and then, the edge of the black, and then you could see the sun. But, I had to have the lights on all day yesterday, which was really strange because it felt like it was nighttime. It was so dark. Right now, it's just really, really smoky. If you walk outside, you can see ash falling down. I went out to look at my car this morning, and it's completely covered in ash. And we're not really close to the fire, but I guess we're close enough that it's bringing all the ash over here. It's a little stressful. Luckily, I have an air purifier in the bedroom, so I've had that up on full tilt ever since this has all happened. If you go outside, you really need to use a mask. I went and got gas yesterday just in case, because you never know how crazy it would be if we did get that evacuation notice. It was like a war zone. It was crazy. There were trees uprooted in the middle of the street. As I was passing the 7-Eleven, from the windstorm, which was before the fires, the whole 7-Eleven sign was smashed out. So we've had crazy winds here. I'm used to wind coming from Newfoundland, but we're not used to wind in LA, and this was, 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Well, today, Washington's National Cathedral hosted the state funeral for Jimmy Carter, the 39th President of the United States. All 5 living presidents looked on as Carter's grandson spoke of his grandfather.
His spirit will live on in many ways for us. He'll be in the kitchen making pancakes, or in his wood shop finishing a cradle for a great-grandchild. Standing in a trout stream with Mom Carter. Or for me, just walking those Georgia fields and forests where he's from.
Imagine there's no heaven.
Well, U.S. President Joe Biden spoke of how he supported Carter in his presidential bid. Barack Obama chatted with seatmate Donald Trump while the Carter family sat on the other side of the aisle. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attended as well. Carter's final resting place will be near his home in Plains, Georgia. Turning to this country now, where immigrants say they're having a positive experience for the most part, but they report facing unique challenges when it comes to housing. Alexander Silberman has more.
Wow, they have visitor parking.
Vineet and Diksha Jain arrived in Saskatoon from India last year with high hopes for a better life and began searching for a home.
This looks like really spacious.
Yeah, it's spacious
for now,
plus compact.
They saw rising rents, but being new to Canada was the biggest obstacle. With no credit history, references, or jobs, landlords kept saying no.
I was feeling like we should give up and maybe we should go back to our home country.
The long hunt for stable housing held up their path to getting settled in Canada and focusing on finding work in their fields. After 6 months of renting a room, they eventually found a place of their own.
There was always a tension back of our mind that we need to get into some good and bigger accommodation so that we can prioritize and plan our future.
The Gens are among many newcomers to Canada reporting challenges finding housing. In a survey conducted for CBC News, 8 in 10 newcomers say they've had a positive experience settling in Canada, but just more than half say they found a home that is affordable. The cost of rentals continues to grow across Canada, with most units still too expensive for the average renter. The country is rapidly building new apartments like these ones, and that's helping affordability with a record number of new rentals this year. But housing policy experts say construction is still lagging behind demand.
Supply just can't respond quickly enough.
This researcher says an influx of international students and temporary foreign workers created a rapid surge in demand for rentals.
People can get on a plane anywhere in the world this morning and arrive tonight. But we can't get a house on a production line this morning and have it ready for tonight. It takes us 5 or 6 years to get a housing built.
Others say it's a matter of too little housing and argue Canada can't afford to scale back immigration.
But simply saying that we're going to slow the population and therefore solve all of our problems, I think is actually very short-sighted and distracts us from the work that we need to do.
Welcome to our new home, Diksha.
The Gens are glad to finally have a place of their own, but they worry for other newcomers arriving in Canada and say some landlords and scammers are taking advantage of their situations. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Regina.
Look at that one over there.
Is this good?
Yeah, a little bit more. That felt good.
Therapeutic almost.
There's a wrestling ring down there. What's that about?
This is wild.
Returning now to the story out of Southern California, where raging wildfires are ravaging entire communities. Sean Majumder, a comedian and actor from this province, lives in LA, and he says he and his family are safe and that it's been a frightening experience. He spoke with CBC last night.
The biggest thing for me weren't the flames, it was the wind. Last night, we knew that the fire was happening over there, and also we knew what the potential could be if something sparked right here. We're right next to a massive forest. It was the winds. It was like 100-kilometer-an-hour winds. The whole house was shaking. And I went out last night, and I was like, wow, this is serious. I've never felt this kind of wind here before. Then when I woke up this morning, I saw smoke, and I was really concerned about that. But, man, it was definitely scary knowing what potentially could happen. The ground is a tinderbox, like it's dry. If you've ever tried to make a fire out in the woods, you know that this is the stuff you need desperately to start a fire. I'm from Newfoundland, and there's a lot of wet there, and you need dry. This place is all kindling. Between the fires and the potential earthquakes, and it's just the political situation is really interesting too. And I have 2 daughters now, and we want to find a place that is not quite as on edge. These fires definitely have put a pin in that and made us kind of rethink where we want to be. And who knows, getting up there in the 51st state known as Canada. So I don't mean to laugh, but I can't believe that's even a thing that people are talking about. But anyway, yeah, no, we're fine. We are healthy. Our house is safe. We are blessed, man, because I'm hearing these stories that Steve was talking about and many other people. We are beyond blessed. It could have gotten really serious really fast. That's the thing. It happens so fast. You could think, oh, there's just a little smoke over there. And then boom, it's an inferno. And that's what a lot of these people were facing out west. So.
Hard to watch those images. My goodness, the destruction is incredible.
It's hard to conceptualize it too, right?
What it must be like, and incredible. Okay, so let's talk about how things are in our neck of the woods. Long-range forecast. We've been talking about how kind of mild it is outside, but things are going to change as we get into next week, right?
Yeah, mild definitely compared to what it should be for this time of year. Yeah, we're going to get into more of a wintry couple of days, I guess, a little bit more winter weather. Let's take a look at what's going on as we head into Saturday. So that area of low pressure will sink south of us through the day. Saturday morning, we'll likely see there's some showers or flurries through parts of the province, and those winds will be a little breezy up across Labrador. You see that next area of low pressure just sitting offshore there. It's going to stay there for a little while and also just bring some potential for some snow towards coastal areas of Labrador, or at least inland areas of Labrador towards the coast again. Still dealing with the warmer temperatures, so what does fall may fall as rain, but further inland in those higher elevations, you'll certainly see snow. It'll definitely become a little bit more snowy as you head into the afternoon and evening hours up across Labrador, and then some more showers or flurries certainly possible across the island as well. Temperatures will be hovering somewhere between 0 and about +3 for most, and Labrador still hanging out in the 1 degree range towards the coast. Happy Valley Goose Bay will hover around 0 degrees, and the coldest temperatures will be in Lab City at about -10 through the afternoon. So we're getting back to more seasonable temperatures. Still above, though. It's hard to believe that -10 is above seasonable, but it certainly is. As we head into the evening hours and Sunday morning, again, that area of low pressure is just going to sit offshore, but still unsettled. Some more cloud cover expected on Sunday. The chance of some flurries again towards the coast. But a bridge of high pressure is going to start to move in for Lab West, and things will continue to be chilly, and also the chance of some sunshine rather for parts of the western Labrador, and then parts of the island as well. You may see a few peaks of sun through the day. Overall, temperatures will start to dip a little bit below zero for most, even up across Labrador as well, down to about -2 in Cartwright. Long-range forecast, still looking, like I said, a little bit more wintry, so the potential for some flurries in the mix right through to the middle of next week, with temperatures near or just a little bit above zero for St. John's and eastern Newfoundland. For Central, you're also looking at a similar forecast. Temperatures a little cooler, though, into the minus single digits, and even more so for western Newfoundland, which is good news for some snowmaking for those of you that are planning on going skiing anytime soon. But for eastern Labrador, you're looking at more wintry mix there as well, minus single digits and minus double digits for western Labrador, with a potential for some sun in the mix there as well. Our weather photo of the day taken Signal Hill. This is a beautiful shot of early morning there. You can see Cape Spear there in the background. Thank you, Jody, for that. If you have any weather photos, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
And another Coast Guard vessel.
There you go.
In the show last night with the rainbows and Coast Guard vessels, it seems every night.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And you make a good point about people who like the outdoor winter activities. If you like skiing, if you like snowshoeing, if you like getting out on snowmobile.
Kind of hard to do when there's no snow.
Yeah, not a great winter so far for that.
No, not at all.
All right, well, things will be changing. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Have a great evening.